So today I want to talk about what no guitarist or no YouTuber wants to talk about. How GAS, guitar acquisition syndrome, is really guitar addiction syndrome. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Ministry of Guitar. My name is Utkarsh Mohan. I'm coming to you from Singapore. As always, if you like what I'm doing, please do like, subscribe, and share. It really, really helps. This is an important topic because I feel like a lot of factors have led us to glamorize something that we shouldn't. And also, sometimes when you look at things through a longer lens, you realize how popular culture or society may advocate something that later turns out to be very, very harmful. So, starting off with the second topic first, there are plenty of things today that were very popular, that were not even frowned upon, that were encouraged 50 years, 100 years ago. And today it is absolutely frowned upon. A good example is cigarettes. Look up also certain drugs. Look up the origin of Coca-Cola if you want. And even if you examine things today, you may notice how addicted people are to their phones, as an example. You may think that it is well normal because everybody does it. But who knows, maybe 50 years down the road, future generations will look back and reflect on how strange it was that people were so addicted to little devices and how it completely altered their lives and mental health. And I actually think that guitar acquisition syndrome is something that is, one, not healthy. I would say it is more akin to an addiction. And I generally think that once certain economic factors have passed, it may actually be noticed as something downright harmful. Now, what are the factors? You might be noticing that the market for anything quote unquote collectible has really exploded in the last 10, 15 years. Think of Porsches, think of watches, think of anything, even vintage guitars. Why has that happened? You could attribute it to the baby boomers reaching a certain age. But if you examine this more closely, there is nostalgia, but there is also the availability of free money. So what has happened is that a lot, because of interest rates being low since the 2008 financial crisis, and in general, a lot of money being pumped into the economy, especially post the pandemic, a lot of money has flown to, especially to the top, and a lot of relatively smaller group of people have gotten a lot more money. And a lot of these people are kind of fueling the collectibles market and other markets. One, because they might be nostalgic for them, but two, also because it is, it is a alternate investment, because how much money can they put in the normal investment places? So whether it's playing cards, whether it is watches, whether it is vintage cars, it then becomes another asset class. And what happens is then suddenly this entire concept of fetishizing nostalgia and paying crazy amounts of money for certain stuff just becomes normalized, and it becomes kind of glamorous because you can kind of make money off it. Certain things go up. If you bought a pre-CBS Strat in 2009, it would be worth so much more right now, so on and so forth. Suddenly this act of buying more and more and collecting and accumulating more and more becomes glamorized. Now, not all of us have that much money. A lot of us look at this kind of glamour of having these massive guitar collections. I know I'm having one myself, but as we'll get to myself in a little bit. But a lot of us look at all of this glamour, people buying new guitars in the internet, new guitar day, whatever it might be, new pedal day, new amp day, so on and so forth. And then it becomes normalized. Then you're like, you know what? Why am I not having a new guitar day that often? Why am I not having a new amp day? And then you constantly get onto that treadmill. You're constantly searching for the next big thing, the next unusual thing. They launched a new color, etc. And it's kind of interesting how non-functional things have become so valuable. There was a multicolored dipped Pia, which is identical to a 5,000 Ibanez Pia, which was identical to, I think, a $5,000 regular Pia. My friend who actually got two of them, he put one of them up on Reverb. He got like an offer of 18,000 or something almost immediately. And I believe Ish Guitars is selling one for about 22,000. It's the same thing as a $5,000 guitar. It just has a different paint job. So this sort of non-functional, very, very nominal thing has suddenly become glamorized and fetishized because of all of this culture and normalization of really paying huge amounts of money for small differences. This is really happening because technology and everything that we have around us, connectivity, etc., has made the world such a convenient, such a place where a lot of your basic needs, more than your basic needs, have been met, that suddenly people are looking for other things to differentiate. Like if you look at the car industry, cars have gotten pretty much as fast as they can. So now it becomes about other things. It becomes about handling if you look at certain, the next greatest thing, it's not necessarily how fast it can go. It is other things that they're now going after. So there's a lot of this where you already have a lot already done. So suddenly the vintage, suddenly the slight differentiation becomes more valuable. Guitars play pretty much as well as they can. So suddenly we have to find some other difference. So we find relic guitars and we find other things because new things are simply not good enough because we've taken new things for granted. Now, guitar acquisition. I would say I've had quite the journey, and there's good news and bad news. The bad news is that I have had what I would call not the most healthy journey because I have 80 guitars and I must have bought and sold about 150 over a very short period of time because till 2015, 2016, I had only one guitar. And then maybe I grew it to about 16, 17 by 2018. 2018 to 2020, my Japan assignment maybe grew from 15 to 50. And then suddenly from 2020 to 2022, 23, it doubled from 50 to 100. That's a crazy number. The only saving grace was none of it was taken on financing or anything. It was all cash down. But still, that's not healthy. Should you be allocating that much money behind an asset? Now, it's a different matter that I was relatively more prudent in the way I bought them, so I have made more than I have lost. But nonetheless, I don't think that is necessarily the best way to acquire, to allocate. It has worked out well for me in the end, but if I think about the motivation and the behavior itself, I'm not talking about the outcome. The outcome is great. I've talked about this, guitars being alternate assets. But it's the behavior. It is the behavior of constantly chasing that new thing. It is the behavior of constantly wanting something else. It's the behavior of completely, downplaying because you get so used to having new guitars that when you were 18 years old, that guitar that you bought, that was so special for you. You remember the day you went to the guitar store. They remember the one or 2 months or 3 months of honeymoon period. Later, you got so much value out of one guitar. Now, when you're buying and selling guitars constantly, what value do you get? Nothing. You get used to it. It's like going and buying a shirt. It's nothing. So that is terrible. That kind of devalues the entirety of having a finely crafted instrument or anything functional. We take it all for granted because today objects are like easy, right? There is so much production. There are so many factories. We can buy a guitar for $100, throw it away if we want. Everything is so disposable because we are living at a certain time in the post-industrial age where things are cheap. There is too many things actually. Most of us are hoarding in our houses. So guitar acquisition syndrome is just kind of a continuation of that where you continue to devalue the things that you own. So this is the bad part of it. Now, the only good part of my guitar acquisition syndrome is that it was not externally motivated, which is to say I'm the kind of person who'll buy a new guitar and not tell anyone about it because I bought it for myself. I really wanted it. In fact, I got embarrassed at the point where I did not tell my bandmates I bought another new guitar because I knew I'd get so much flack. But I sense from a lot of people and a lot of people that I speak to that a big part of the pleasure a lot of people get is that sense of social validation. When they buy a new guitar or when they get something else, it's just that it's a dopamine hit. Post the new guitar that you have, get a bunch of likes on social media, get a bunch of appreciative looks from whoever you care about, the few other people who play guitar, who have this sad little hobby that like you do. But it's not healthy. Nobody needs 70 guitars or 80 guitars, or frankly, nobody needs more than, if you just play 6-string guitar, I think you need about 7 or 8. I've talked about this in a previous video, at the very most. And that need is a very, very subjective number. You could say you could get away with 1, as I got away with for 10 years. So my point here is very simple. Recognize the following. Number 1, we are living at a time that has so much prosperity when it comes to objects that we are finding new ways to create differences and pay extra money for small differences which don't really matter. Ibanez PR being a great example. Sorry to pick on that one, but plenty of other examples out there. Number two, this cheapification, I don't think that's the right word, but this cheapening of material goods, because we live in such a materially prosperous time, is ultimately a little bit unhealthy, because we are disregarding the time, effort, and frankly resources from the world possibly that it takes to make a material good. Just because it's cheap doesn't mean that it's not taking resources. It's just how it's being valued in the capital market. It may be having a very negative impact environmentally, so to speak. So what I'm saying is, if you're buying a material good, if you're getting a material good, consider it is a little bit of a sacred thing. 100 years ago, any material possession would be quite a thing, because people didn't get many material possessions. Just because you and me are at this particular point in history doesn't mean that we should cheapen it. So what I'm saying is, I'm not saying don't buy, but if you're buying something or you're getting some material good, treat it with respect. Treat it with respect, because you could not create that by yourself to begin with. Number three, recognize that guitar acquisition syndrome is nothing but guitar addiction syndrome. Now, you can do it if you want, but be very well aware that this is not something you should particularly endorse. It's not something you should particularly encourage. Not to stop someone from buying something that they want, but don't encourage the habit. Don't encourage the habit. Don't fetishize. Do not aggrandize the idea of people over accumulating things. It's not a great thing. And I know I'm saying this fully aware with what I have behind me. Do not aggrandize it. It's okay if somebody wants to do it, but it should not be something that you should aspire to. It is certainly not something that you should feel bad because you don't have it. You don't need more than 1, 2, or 3, or whatever the number of guitars. One guitar is also fine. Some of the greatest musicians can just play it with one guitar, honestly. That's all you need. Do not feel that you're missing out. And lastly, I've said this many times before, just because you have a consumerist, consumptionist culture out there, just because the world today, in an era where there has been a lot of liquidity poured into the system and a lot of credit available, etc., just because that world today tells you that you should be wanting to get more and you should stretch yourself and getting more is achieving, etc., etc., don't buy into that. Do what you want for yourself. If you really, really want that pre-CBS Strat because it's a guitar you've dreamt about for 20 years, go and get it. But don't buy it just because every guitarist should own a pre-CBS Strat. Every guitarist should own a PRS private stock at some point. Every guitarist should own a vintage guitar. All of that is just nonsense. All right, this has been kind of ranty kind of a video, but I have been wanting to say this for some time. Do let me know what you think. Do let me think if you think I'm being hypocritical. I think I'm not, but I might be. Do let me know if you have any points to add, and I'll see you next time.